All right, everyone, so this is day 2 of the meetup game Josh and I had at Rockford Charity Games a couple weeks ago. First playable hand, I looked down at ace-10-4-2-2, single suit in the small blind. There's a middle position open at 15, one late position caller, I call, and a big blind call. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. Just a reminder that if I get dealt 5 cards, as I have here, we're playing Big O. If I get dealt 4 cards, it's just regular old PLO. Up comes King, Queen, Jack with 2 spades. I bet 35, folds over to Emily in late position, who makes the call. So we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings a king, I check. Emily now bets 70 and I fold, so she's going to take it down here. Here look down at ace, king, jack, 4-3, single suited in early position. We ended up going 6 ways, $15 each to a flop of 5-4-2 with 2 spades. Sonny is the under the gun original raiser. He's a regular here that typically plays the 5-5 PLO mix. He bets 85. Over to me with under a pot size bet. I just put it all in the middle. Over to a late position player who calls, and Sonny also makes the call. So we're going 3 ways to a run out. Turn brings a 9. River brings a pretty clean card and a jack of diamonds, so we still have the nut low and second nut high, and no one else looks too happy about it, and we're going to scoop it here. The late position player said he had 6, 7, 8 with spades, and not sure what Sonny had, but happy to take it down here. Here look down at ace, king, 10, 8, 7, double suited on the button. Folds to Josh, who makes it 15. I call, small blind, and the big blind call, so we're going 4 ways to a flop. The small blind is my buddy Rob. We've been chatting for a while, and this is actually the first time we met, so it was really great playing with him. And the big blind is Adam. He's a local here in Chicago, and he happened to stop by for the meetup game as well, so definitely want to give thanks to those two. Flop comes king, queen, 7, rainbow. Adam in the big blind bets 15. Josh folds, I call, and Rob calls, so we're going to go 3 ways here to a turn. The turn brings a jack. Both players check to me. I bet 30, and only Adam makes the call, so we're going heads up to a river. River doesn't change anything with a 6. Adam checks again, and I don't want to bet too large here as I don't think he's too strong. Maybe he has some kind of 2-pair holding. So I settle on 55, and Adam tanks for a little bit, but eventually makes the call. So I turn over my hand, and of course we're good. Shortly after the previous hand, I look down at ace, queen, 10, 5, 2, single suited under the gun. I make it 15, and there are 3 callers. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes 5-4-3 rainbow. I see bet 25. Over to Robert. You can kind of see him on the left of the screen there in the blue sweater. Really cool guy. He drove out from Madison, Wisconsin. He also makes the call. Over to Josh, who then makes it 80 and folds back to me. So it's always nice to flop the wheel, but the problem here is I don't really have many ways to improve on my high hand. So if I'm up against a hand like 7-6, I'm most likely going to be chopping against that. And Robert's a pretty conservative player, so it's definitely possible for him to also have ace deuce, which would mean we're going to both get quartered. So I decided to take a conservative approach and fold, and Robert makes the call. So they ended up going heads up to a turn. The turn brought an 8 of clubs. They ended up getting all the money in. River brought a queen of clubs. Robert turns over ace, queen, 5, 2, ace. So he flopped the wheel just like me, but hits the backdoor flush. And Josh turns over the king, 10 of clubs with the 7-6. So pretty sick cooler here, and Robert's going to take down a pretty nice pot. Here look down at ace, king, 7-2, single suit in the small blind. Folds to Josh, who makes it 15. One late position caller over to me. Another thing that we do in our meetup games is something called the small blind jackpot. We actually did this back in Hustler as well. So what it is the player that's on the button adds a $5 chip on top of the button, and the only player that can win this money is the player in the small blind. So what usually happens is, if the player in the small blind doesn't win, then that money just kind of keeps adding up. So in this hand, there's actually $60 on the button, and I'm the only player that can win the hand as I'm in the small blind. So for that reason, I make the call and the big blind folds. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes queen, 9, 8, all clubs. I check. Josh c-bets 20. Other player gets out of the way. And here against other opponents, I would probably just call and evaluate a turn. But against Josh, obviously, who has a much wider range, he's going to bet this flop with a pretty high frequency. And if he has a hand such as a set or 2 pair, I don't really want to make it cheap for him to kind of catch up on the turn. So I make it 60. And Josh goes, wow, you really have the jack 10 of clubs, and turns over the ace of clubs, but then mucks the rest of the hand. So we're going to take it down here. Here look down at king, queen, 10, 7, single suit in middle position. There's an under the gun open at 10. I call, and there are 3 other callers. So we're going 5 ways to a flop. Flop comes ace, jack, 8 with 2 spades. Checks to me. I bet 25, and there are 2 callers. So we're going 3 ways to a turn. Turn brings a 5. I check. Action checks through. So still going 3 ways to a river. River brings a pretty good card for us in the 9 of spades. I bet 60, and unfortunately everyone folds, so no action here with our straight flush. We look down at ace, ace, 9, 9, single suited under the gun. I make it 15. One caller over to Josh, who makes it 40. One caller to me, I just call, and the other player calls. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. This hand gets checked all the way down to the river after the flop brought king 3-2 with 2 hearts. Turn brought a 6. River brings a 7. I bet $5, and we get Josh and another player to call. I turn over my hand, and we're good. So that's how you get max value right there. All right, guys, just taking a second to let everyone know Josh and I are going to be in Texas next month at 3 different locations, starting with the Georgetown Poker Club February 16th, 17th, and 18th. That's on PokerAtlas, so let me know if you guys want to get on the list. The following weekend, we're going to be in Dallas at the Hideaway, and we're also going to be at the 101 Poker Richmond in Houston. So if you have any questions, comment down below or DM me on Instagram, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Here, look down at ace, queen, 9, 8, double suited in the big blind. Rob makes a 15, 2 other callers to me, and I call. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes queen, queen, 7, rainbow. I check. Rob c-bets 60, folds to me, and I make the call. So we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings a 5, I check, and Rob checks back. So still going heads up to a river. River brings a 4. I try some thin value here and bet 40, and Rob folds. So we take it down here. So we have a couple new players at the table. To the left of Josh is Mike, and then his friend Nick is going to be in the 5 seat. Me and him are about to get involved in a pretty fun pot here. Here, look down at ace, 7, 4, 4, 2, single suited in middle position in a straddled pot. There's one limp to me, I limp. Over to Nick in the small blind, who makes it 50. Josh makes the call and I call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes king 10 7 all spades, checks to me, and before the flop was dealt, the player to my right, whose name is Song, really cool guy, he came out for the meetup game. He wanted to sweat out the hand, so when I see that I have the naked nut flush blocker, I guess kind of letting him sweat it out, put a little bit more pressure on me to try to make a play. So I go for 80 here, and only Nick makes the call. So we're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings a 2 of spades. Nick checks again. And at this point, when I'm considering barreling again, I do have the thought that, you know, this card's going to obviously bring in quite a bit of low draws. So if he has a hand like ace 3, ace 4, it's going to be a little more difficult to get him off the hand. But, you know, I don't want to back off at this point. He has about 650 total. So I settle on 275, which, you know, in my mind kind of leaves him enough behind that, you know, if nothing changes on the river, I could potentially get him to fold. He thinks for a little bit and does eventually make the call. So we're going heads up to a river. River brings a 7, and Nick doesn't waste too much time before pushing everything in the middle for 370 total. Now, what would you do in this situation? While you're thinking about it, I'm going to play the audio.
That'd be pocket kings, man.
I'm going to pay you off.
Call. Queen high flush.
I had a boat.
Do a boat.
Wow.
Seven's full of deuces.
I was bluffing with the blocker, and I just happened to back into it. So unlucky.
Nice answer.
Thanks, man.
Okay, nice call. Wow, I can't believe you called that.
I mean, I was hoping that I don't know what.
I was definitely bluffing.
I put him on a set.
I was trying to bluff with the blocker.
I put him on a set there. How did he always has a set there? Wow. Nice call, dude. Great fucking bet. I think it was worse with everybody else but him, possibly.
Here we look down at 10, 9, 8, 6 double suited in middle position. There's one early position limp. I make it 20, and there are 3 callers, so we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes ace 5 3 with 2 spades, checks to me, I check, and action checks through, so still going 4 ways to a turn. Turn brings a 7, checks to me again. I bet 40 this time, and everyone folds, so we're going to take it down. Here look down at ace jack 10 7 single suited under the gun. I make it 15. Rob to my left makes it 50. Over to Josh, who calls, and I call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes queen 9 7 rainbow, and instead of checking to Rob, in which he's most likely going to make a pot size continuation bet, I bet 65, hoping to see the turn card for a little cheaper, and Rob makes the call, and so does Josh, so we're still going 3 ways to a turn. Turn brings an 8, I bet 265, Rob pots it, Josh thinks a bit and folds, and he has a little bit behind, so I just go ahead and push it all in, and Rob makes the call. So I'm hoping that his redraw is not too great, and we're going heads up to a river. Now in this situation with a nut straight where I can't improve, it is a little easier to make a big call when you're most likely up against the same hand when there isn't a flush draw available. You know, obviously if, you know, somebody has a set with a flush draw redraw, you know, you have a lot more cards to dodge than, You know, really the best redraw that Rob can have here would be like a set with, you know, the straight, where, you know, I don't have to dodge as many cards. River brings a 9, so not a great card, but Rob turns over his hand. He has Queen Jack 10-7, so he did have a redraw, but luckily didn't hit his pair, and we're going to chop it up here. And what's funny is Josh actually said that he had pocket 8s, and, you know, he was going to call the bet of mine on the turn, but obviously once Rob potted it, you know, he had no choice but to fold. Here, look down at ace, king, queen, jack, 8, double suited in the hijack. There's an early position open at 15. I call, and there are 3 other callers. So we're going 5 ways to a flop. Flop comes ace, ace, 5 with 2 hearts. Under the gun, now bet 75. I call, and there's a late position caller. So we're going 3 ways to a turn. Turn brings a 9 of hearts. The under the gun player checks. I bet 125, but looking back, probably should have bet a little bit more, as, you know, I want to charge the maximum for people to draw to their lows. The late position player calls all in for less, and the under the gun player makes the call. So we're going 3 ways to a river. River brings a 3, and now the under the gun player checks, and I don't see any point of doing anything besides checking back. The under the gun player turns over his hand. He has 10-7, 3-3-2. So pretty unfortunate that that's literally the only card he could have scooped me with, but he's going to take it down here. Here, look down at ace 10-7-5 double suited in the small blind. There's an under the gun straddle to 15. Josh makes it 35. I call over to the straddler, whose name is Morrow. He's been playing pretty wide and, you know, just really looking to get it in pre-flop with any hand. He goes ahead and makes it 180. He only has about 30 behind. Josh makes the call, and although my hand is not that great, against his pretty wide opening range, you know, it doesn't figure to be too bad. So I make the call, and we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes king, king, jack with 2 clubs. I check. Morrow pushes for $30. Josh makes the call, and I also call. So we're going still 3 ways to a turn. Turn brings a 4. I check, and Josh checks back. So still going 3 ways to a river. River brings an ace. I check, and Josh says he was probably good on the flop, but obviously not anymore, and turns over a jack. I turn over my ace, and the all-in player mucks his hand. So we're going to take it down here. Just wanted to take a second to thank everyone for coming out to support Josh and I. It was really great getting to meet everyone. If you're in the Chicago area and you want a great game without having to wait 3 or 4 hours like you do at Rivers, definitely check out Rockford Charity Games. You can go to rcgpoker.com. I'll put a link in the description below, you know, as they do change their locations pretty frequently. Another advantage they have is they're very lenient on different games they offer. So, you know, for example, they run Big O. They actually run a PLO and Bomb Pot mix game, which is pretty cool. I also know Rob was talking to Jeff, who's the host of the game, about running a 5-card PLO high game. So again, if you're in the area, definitely check them out. What's up, guys? Wayne back here with you. So today I was in for 400, out for 2130, so profit of 1730. If you haven't already done so, check out the previous video. I'll link it up here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.